everyone. I'm Linda Lisanti, Editor-in-Chief of Convenience Store News. Welcome to this episode of our Convenience Inclusion Initiative podcast, where we share stories of how the C-store industry is fostering an inclusive work culture and tap the minds of thought leaders for insight into what more the industry could be doing to benefit from diversity of thought and background. I'm here today with Ruth Rathblott, an expert on inclusion and belonging. Ruth works with organizations to build inclusive work environments, breaking down the walls of miscommunication, producing more cohesive teams, and creating higher performing employees. She is the author of 2 best-selling books, Single-Handedly Learning to Unhide and Embrace Connection, and her new book, Unhide and Seek, Live Your Best Life, Do Your Best Work. Welcome, Ruth. Thank you for speaking with me today.
I am super excited to be with you, Linda. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Me too. So your work centers on the premise that most of us hide parts of ourselves at work. And you say that this is detrimental both to the individual and the organization. Can you elaborate on this?
Sure. I was someone who hid a part of myself for 25 years. I was born with a disability. I was born missing my left hand. And for 25 years, I kept it tucked in my pocket. I didn't talk about it. I kept it out of sight. And so people around me, whether it be friends or coworkers or leaders in my workplaces, had no idea that's what was going on. And Linda, it is exhausting. It is lonely. And oftentimes you think you are the only one that is hiding part of yourself. I thought I was alone in this. I thought I was the only one hiding. So I felt so disconnected. And the truth is, most of us are hiding something. And what I mean by hiding is deliberately not sharing a part of yourself for fear of rejection, for fear of judgment, and even fear of pity. And so people hide things, I found, they hide either their things from their past in terms of past trauma, past experiences, etc. People hide things in their current situations, whether it be relationship status or relationship challenges. They hide their religion, they hide politics, they hide sexual orientation, mental health. People hide things all the time in their present situations, even financial status, where they fit in or how they're doing. And people hide their dreams and aspirations, those future pieces. And what happens when we hide, Linda, is we think we're alone in it. So we handle it by overachieving or overcompensating or withdrawing. And what happens is then people make assumptions about our behavior based on very little information, right? We think that it's keeping us safe by hiding, but the truth is those things that we're hiding often keep us playing small. And that's how it shows up in the workplace, is either overachieving, but having a guard up and an armor, or playing small and not raising our hands, not creating innovation. And at the end of the day, it also impacts the business, right? It impacts engagement, how we feel like when we show up. Are we engaged? Do we feel seen? Do we feel heard? Are we belonging? It impacts retention. Should I stay at a company if I don't feel like I belong? Should I, if I want to keep my head down, then I'm going to leave. And it impacts innovation because I'm not coming up with my best and most creative ideas or thinking outside the box because I'm so worried about the thing that I'm hiding.
That's really interesting. And people might be hiding for so long that they don't even realize that they're doing it.
100%, Linda, you get it. Yeah, 100%. So often I do an exercise when I speak at companies, and I invite people toward the end of the session to think about what it is that they're hiding. And exactly to your point, there are some things that we tuck away for so long that we don't even realize that we're hiding them, or even realize that it's having an impact on our connection to people or the work that we're doing.
So that leads perfectly into my next question, which is, how can you recognize hiding, both in yourself and in others?
Yep. I think it's about introspection. That's the first place, is being curious about yourself. And when I talk about hiding, it's not that I'm advocating for people to overshare in the workplace or to overshare in their lives, because I think many of us don't want that and we don't want to do that, right? But it's the idea of, how is the thing that you're hiding holding you back? How is it holding you back from connecting? How is it holding you back from thriving, from living your best life, from doing your best work? Whether it be someone who maybe it's that they have an accent or they have a stutter. I'm just using this as an example. And they're thinking, well, I don't talk in meetings, right? Or I try to get out of meetings. Well, that's holding you back, right? It's exhausting for yourself, but it's also holding you back from connecting with your team, because then your team starts making assumptions about your behavior or the ideas that aren't possibly even true. And so when I think about how do we start to think about what we're hiding, it's that introspective piece. And then how do we think about others, what they may be hiding? It's taking a pause, right? And thinking about who's speaking up in meetings, who's not, who's showing up in different ways, and just sometimes allowing for maybe I'm making an assumption about this person. I don't know about you, Linda, but I was one of those leaders early on in my career who was very specific about time. Like I had a clock that I watched and I was like, oh, if you're not in by 9, then you don't care about the job. That was kind of this mentality. And it came from people I'd had supervisors before. It was a very time oriented thing. And so if somebody was late, I would be really upset. What I could have done differently is taken a pause, right? And wondered maybe what's going on for that person. Why are they continuously and consistently late? Maybe they have a child at home who needs attention in the morning. Maybe they have a family member who needs attention. Maybe they have their own mental health or challenges that are preventing them from that quote unquote 9 o'clock work, where we could have had a conversation about it rather than me making an assumption about it. And I think often as leaders, we make assumptions about people's performance and we're focused on performance and productivity. We forget about people. And so I think it's about slowing it down and creating that space for yourself with introspection. Like, what is it that you may be hiding? How is it holding you back? And if it's not you, maybe it's somebody else on your team. And the research shows, Linda, from Deloitte, that 60% of us are hiding or covering a part of ourselves in the workplace. When I talk to audiences and even my own belief, I think that number is higher, much higher. And it's impacting how we're showing up in the workplace and the culture that we're creating.
And we get so wrapped up in the work that, sometimes we don't lift our head up enough to see around us.
Absolutely. And make room for where people may need support, right? Because if we're hiding something about ourselves and we haven't shared it with a coworker or a manager or HR, then we're navigating it all on our own. We don't feel like we can get the support we need. So then our performance is impacted. Then the company is impacted. Then the morale is impacted. Innovation's impacted. Like it becomes a spiral. So to your point, if we just for a moment lifted our head, right, and paused and thought, where on my team might this be happening? That's where we start.
So one last question. What are some simple steps that leaders can take to create an environment where people feel safe enough to unhide and show up fully?
Yeah, leaders have a big job here. Leaders go first. It's, often I think, and maybe you had this too, Linda, as a leader, many of us are taught to have this external armor, right? Like to have all of the answers, not show any weaknesses, not, keep people at arm's length. And yet we're also then seen as not always fully human, and show our full humanity. And so leaders have a big job in terms of doing the work themselves first on themselves, right? Thinking about where have I been holding back from my team? Not oversharing or sharing too much, but it's the idea of how can I share that maybe I've been challenged with that same problem that you're going through, or maybe I have something in my own life where it would be helpful for you to know so that you could see me as my full human self. So that we can connect differently. So I don't seem like, I know there were moments in my career, Linda, where my team thought, oh, well, I can't tell you something because you're a perfectionist. Like you overachieve, you're overcompensating, and yet that doesn't allow then for mistakes to be made where we learn from them, or to prevent things from happening that I could have known if we had a more open relationship. So the first step is for leaders to take their own self-audit or self-inventory and think about where in your life may you be hiding something. And if it's not you, to pick up your head, like you suggested, off the desk and look around and think about who on my team, who am I hearing from? Who am I not hearing from? Creating that pause and sharing a piece of yourself with your team so that they feel that connection, that you're building that connection and you're modeling what it looks like to be an unhidden leader, so that you're creating that empathy, you're creating that trust, you're creating that sense of belonging. That's the space. And the truth is, with unhiding, there's just 4 simple steps to unhiding. Is it helpful if I share those with you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The first is that acknowledging piece. Acknowledge what it is that you're hiding, right? That's self-work. And it can be through journaling, it can be through therapy, it can be doing just your own thoughtfulness and talking. The second step is inviting just one person in. And I imagine when I say that step to you and to the people listening, they have a go-to, right? They have someone that they know they trust. They have someone that is curious with kindness, that asks questions. They have somebody who shows empathy. And the fourth piece to that person you invite in, it's kind of a cheat sheet. That fourth quality is someone who's willing to share something about themselves also back, right? Because it's that two-way street that we want to create. And that's also what leaders are looking to do, is create a two-way street so that they share something and employees can share. So after you've acknowledged and you've invited in one person, then the third step is building out your community, starting to find places of people with shared experiences, places where you can get the support that you need, where you recognize you're not alone in this, and that people have also gone through it, may have ideas for you. I think it's also the importance of, where I see companies doing it really well, employee resource groups and affinity groups and business resource groups, where there's that shared experience space where you can feel seen and feel heard and feel like you belong. And then the fourth step is sharing out your story, so that not only does it free you from your story, because the more that you share a part of your story of what you've been hiding, you get away from it and make peace with it. And you also allow someone to start their own journey, almost like a flywheel or a loop. And that's this gift. That's the gift of this space. And the other piece, Linda, is this is not an overnight process. This is not like your listeners are going to be, all of a sudden going into work and sharing everything. That's not the goal here. The goal is, it's a journey and it's a continuum from hiding to unhiding. And wherever people are on it, that's where they need to be. And how do you move it? Because there are parts of your life you may want to keep hidden, and that's okay. But how is it holding you back from connecting? And how's it holding you back from thriving and living that best life?
And I love that you describe it as a journey, and that, you say one of the steps is to just find one person. They say a journey starts with a single step, and, all of these connections just lead to a richer workplace and higher performing teams and a better business. So
100%, because then you understand behavior, right, of someone else, because you're not making the assumption. You're also able to connect on a human level with someone else and understand what they may be going through. And it may be something that either you've gone through, or that you're able then to ask questions about it. I met someone recently who talked about that they had Crohn's disease. And what was beautiful about the interaction was, I didn't know a lot about Crohn's disease. And what they did, sometimes the thing we're hiding, we've been holding on to for so long, right? And when we share it with someone else, we expect them to all of a sudden embrace it and be okay with it and move on. Sometimes they may not have all of that information. And so opening up the space, and again, that pause becomes critical, to be able to ask questions, for them to be able to do some research. I wanted to know, what kind of foods help make you flare up? What should I know if there's a flare up? How should I handle it? What do I need to understand to be able to connect with you and to be able to know and to support you? And that's the gift of unhiding, is creating the space so that we can understand people differently and understand what they may be going through and support them, and have it back.
great. Well, thank you so much, Ruth, for chatting with me today and sharing these insights and bringing this to light. Best of luck with the new book. And stay tuned, everyone, for more episodes of our Convenience Inclusion Initiative podcast. Have a great day.
Thank you.